This video brought to you by our Patreons. Please consider supporting this channel and joining our Patreons at patreon.com/NovaWing24.
Hi there folks, my name's NovaWing24 and welcome to another little product review for Microsoft Flight Simulator. So today we are going to be having a look at the first release from developer Just Flight of an aircraft for Microsoft Flight Simulator, and of course we are talking about their rendition of the Piper PA28R-201, or more specifically the PA28R-201. Now this is a very venerable release from them, having been released across multiple platforms over the years. So Just Flight were definitely taking an approach which has been done by several of the well-known developers of taking content that they are very familiar with and they know very intimately to be able to experiment with the new sim platform and see how it adapts to that. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the team at Just Flight have adapted to the new sim and to see some of the good and maybe not so good points that have come across from this one. Alright, so before we get too far into the review, I do want to start off by saying a huge shout out to Just Flight and a huge thank you to them for supplying the review copy of this aircraft today. Alright, so we are going to go through here. We're going to do much like we do for most of our reviews. We're going to have a quick look at the outside here. We're going to jump into the office. We're going to get ourselves started. Then we're going to jump into the air. We're going to do a bit of instrument navigation flying here today in the United Kingdom, putting through some of the radio navigation systems through the test to be able to test out some systems, give you guys and girls a good sensation of the capabilities of this aircraft. Then we'll come in, do a landing, and then we'll wrap up and give our final thoughts. Right, so probably the first one to sort of note here is that, yeah, it again is a beautiful, highly detailed model of the aircraft. It definitely looks cleaner and the textures look absolutely amazing in the new sim, they really do. So, I mean, I've been very fortunate that I've been exposed to this aircraft before in other sims, in FSX and Prepared, and thoroughly enjoyed it in that sim, so it's great to see it into this new one. And as I said, I can't be sure, but it definitely looks like the model might have been cleaned up and tweaked a little bit, but the textures have definitely improved a lot. Now, we're getting to go through some of the interesting little animations as well. So let's probably take this moment to probably jump into the cockpit. So let's get into the office and let's have a look at a few things now. So here we are in the office of the PA28R, and it's just look, and this is the thing, and this is going to shine through for me, is that I am very much a huge fan of general aviation. So a cockpit like this is I am very much at home in. I know it doesn't have all the glass mod cons that many of us are used to these days in modern aircraft, but it's just, this is the kind of, I love this kind of aircraft, I really do. I think there's something... So there's some charm about it, and definitely some sort of a little bit more of a challenge and reward, I think, for being able to fly. Anyway, all right, so a couple of things to get started as we get to note here on this aircraft. Now, there have been some acknowledgements and some nods to some modern cons here. So a couple of basic features that we normally see. So you've got basic click points to show and hide your yokes. Now, probably the most important thing to show off here for this aircraft to get you started is that the most modern of modern conveniences that has been nodded to and acknowledged in this aircraft is the addition of an electronic flight bag. So there's this little switch over here called sort of intercom communications. If you turn that on, then you have your electronic flight bag tablet gets put up here, and you turn that tablet on and off by pressing the home button there. So it powers it up and powers it down. Now, what do you get on the EFB? So the EFB allows you to do a lot of different some basic maintenance tasks of the aircraft, give you some information about the aircraft, and control some of the animations as well. Now, if you wanted to simply get the aircraft ready for takeoff, so if you spawned in here on the ramp and you were like, I didn't want to go through the startup procedure, I just want to jump in and fly, no worries at all. Click this button here and the aircraft will actually it'll automatically start the aircraft for you. So, yeah, I mean, you can go Control E as well, but this will do all the other little things like lights, settings of altimeters and all the rest of it. So, if you want to just get ready for takeoff, just click that and off you go. Otherwise, it also system models various other systems of the aircraft as well, including vapor lock, oil burning as well, and battery charge and loss of battery charge as well. So if you find yourself that you've discharged your battery before you've started the engine, that's fine. Click the recharge battery here button and off you go. It's all done. Now, beyond that, there's a couple of other animations as well to control. You control your yokes from here as well if you didn't use the clip points. It also controls the cockpit avionics as well. So this is the default setup, which is the GPS 100, which is a very, very basic GPS, aviation GPS unit. Pretty much you almost never see these anymore, but so the information office is minimal, but I kind of like it because it's that retro feel. Now, if you prefer a more modern set of GPS avionics, you also have a 430, and you also have a 531, which is, of course, very, very familiar with for those of us who've been flying FSX type sims for many, many years. Now, I will straight up say this is one of what I find. So, by the way, I didn't mention this at the start of the video, but this is post the initial launch patch. So this is the first patch that's been released from Just Flight. This is when this review is being taken place. So we've had the launch and we've had one patch. This is the version I'm reviewing today. Now, this continues to be probably the biggest issue that I have with this aircraft now is the GPS 530 unit. So the GNS 530 unit doesn't work. Well, let me rephrase. It works if you start up on the runway. So if you start up in already flying or on the runway, then which is have the aircraft already set ready for takeoff, then it's working. If you start on the ramp like we are today, you cannot get the 530 to power up. You can see where the on-off switch is there, and you see it light up. The sort of the backlight of the keys lights up, but the actual screen in the interface does not come to life. So that straight up, that is just sort of a bit of a spoiler alert here. But yeah, this is the biggest bug that I actually have with this entire aircraft. The 430 unit and the 100 unit work perfectly fine. There's no issues with those. It's just the 530 that has an issue. So just be aware of that. If that's the GPS unit you wanted to use, be aware that is going to be a problem. You will have to start with the aircraft already running in order to be able to use that. Otherwise, switch over to the 430. Today, we're going to be using sort of the more traditional sort of original design of the aircraft. We're going to be using the GPS 100 units with the original 170B and 175B radio systems is what we'll be using today. All right, so back over to here, a couple other settings as well. HSI enabled, so this controls of your basic 6. You've got your HSI, or you can use a direction indicator card, which is an older style gauge there. We'll be using the HSI because we will be doing some radio navs today, which is driven by radio nav 1. Another one, just to make life a bit easier if you are interested, is that you have the option of an auto fuel selector. So this aircraft operates 2 wet wings for wing tanks for its fuel supply. There is no crossfeed in the aircraft. However, if for the ease of simulation, if you want to have crossfeed so you don't have to worry about draining one tank before the other in flight, then you can enable auto fuel selector over here, and it will automatically switch between the tanks during your flight. All right, otherwise, it does have a few animations, so let's just quickly just have a look at those exterior animations that are available to it here. So you already might have seen some of them before, the chocks, tie downs, and tow bars, but we'll highlight them again in a second here. And then we've got the cabin doors, baggage door, and the oil door. Now, I want to show something off here. So I'm going to use this one to do the baggage door and the oil door. At the cabin door, I've seen a few people posting and saying that the cabin door doesn't open properly. It does, because a lot of people forget there's 2 locks on it. Okay, so the first thing is that to open and close the door, you press the armrest there. But before you do that, you need to open and disengage both locks. So the first lock here is pretty obvious. Okay, we unlock that one. But then you also have an overhead lock as well. So you need to unlock both of those and set them both to open, and then you can open the door. There you go. Okay, so with that open, let's go have a look at these external animations. So here we are on the outside of the aircraft. So we can see that we've got the fuel door, so the oil door open there, where we can refill the oil. Obviously, we've got our cabin entry door open there as well. And you've got a little bit of a baggage compartment here. Now, it's just a thing. If you add weight to the passenger or cargo sliders, nothing appears, nothing changes. Like the weight and balance will change, but nothing will appear. I know some aircraft, some designers do that. This is not one of those. Just quickly a heads up on that one. All right, and then on the pre-flight equipment, you've got the sort of tie downs. You've got your tie down ratchet straps there. You've got your chocks, and you've got the option of a tow bar on the front as well. Non-functional. The the chocks are functional. They will hold the aircraft back, but the tow bar and the tie downs, they're not. They're just simply there for visual decoration, but it makes for some nice screenshots. So there you go. That is the external animations. Let's jump back inside. All right, so with those done, let's close back up our baggage door and our oil filling door. Let's do the cabin door ourselves. So we'll click on that one to close, then we'll latch the overhead and then latch the main part of the door there. So we are locked down now. Now, if you were to leave that open, even just unlock just one in flight, you'll have an increase of wind noise, which is a nice touch of modeling there. All right, so other than that, let's clear our tow bar, tie downs, and chocks, get those out of the way before we start our aircraft. All right, we've got everything else is looking good here. All right, let's get started with our startup sequence now. Let me reset position here. All right. Now, for my controls today, by the way, folks, I will be using the honeycomb yoke. Now, one of the issues I said when this aircraft was first released was the honeycomb yoke switches didn't work and it didn't interface very well with a lot of hard controls. That has been changed since the this update. Now they are fully compatible with all major controls, which is great addition to his seat. All right, now let's get everything started here. So first thing is need to go prop forward. We need to go battery master is on. There we go. Okay, we're going to go to our left tank. Okay, we're going to put mixture full rich. We're going to turn our fuel pump on, get our fuel pressure rising. Fuel pressure now in the green. Good start. All right, rotating beacon is on. Now, probably one thing to note here, unfortunately, that there is no checklist. They don't actually utilize the inbuilt checklist system that's available for the sim, which is a bit of a shame. All right, and start engine, throttle cracked. There we go. All right, alternator is now on. Strobes, navs are on. Everything looking good. Let's quickly cycle through manifold pressure. Clean the engine out. 1500 RPM. All right, back down to idle. All right, so now, as I said, we're going to be using our basic avionics today, sort of your more basics avionics here. So we're going to power on our Garmin GPS 100 unit. It's kind of cool how they've done it as well, which it does like a self-test. It gives you sort of like time, date, look, coordination, all the rest of it. So you actually have to sort of press enter to accept it. It goes through its full acquiring lock as well. So there's a lot of nice, neat little touches that are here in this, the way they model stuff as well, which I really, really appreciate. All right, we're just going to go through and get the rest of our avionics on here. So this is our DME system turned up there. All right, now we're going to have to dial in. As I said, we are flying some VOR navigation today, so we are going to be dialing in some frequencies. So we're first off, the first frequency we're going to dial into is 113.75. So we're going to tune that one in at the moment. 75. There we go. Okay, so we've got a range on that one, but it could need to get a bit higher before we get azimuth on that. And then I'll preset our nav2 as well, just so I know what it is. So it's 117.5 will be the second VOR we'll be touching on today. 117.5, that's fine. There we go. All right, so that is looking right. I think we've got to go here. We'll put our transponder on. Leave it set for VFR flight today. All right, I think we are looking just about set there for all our comms. All right, so I've got my nav, strobes is on, avionics, as I said, it's very basic sort of things for this aircraft, and we'll get more into some of the basic features of this aircraft because it is one of those older, more simpler aircraft, but they can still be challenging to fly. It's one of the reasons why I absolutely love this aircraft. I really, really do. Now, the heading we'll be looking at will be 55 degrees. Now, this is probably one of the challenges of this aircraft is that so I've said this, it has the same, now this is not an issue with Just Flight. This is an issue with, mostly with Asobo rather than Just Flight. Is that the Moving of your sort of your course identifier is all done is sort of in lots of 10 degrees. You can do it by single digit by clicking and holding, but the problem is that it can jump around, and by the time if you let it go, you click it once as a press and hold, and then it jumps 10, and then it'll do some more. But if you're not careful, you'll miss the one that you want to get to, and then you'll end up going back 10 degrees, and it just gets all sort of frustrating. So I was trying to get to 55 degrees. 54 is going to have to be near enough for that course. All right. That is all the pre-flight done. So that is the cockpit layout, as I said. I will quickly just flick over. Actually, I'll just show it to you once we're in the air. Once we'll show you the GNS 430 unit. But otherwise, I think we are good to taxi now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply my brakes. I'm going to unhide these ones. We're going to disconnect. We're going to release our parking brake. All right. EFB is looking good. We can turn that one off for now, I do believe. So let's, we're not going to be needing that for the moment. So let's hide our EFB, as I say, which can be hidden from that little switch there. There we go. All right, let's taxi out here. Now, interesting enough, folks, so for the airport that we're departing from today is High Wycombe, which is a Pilot Plus airport. Very nice little airport for great destination for all your GA activities. Now we've got calm winds today, so we will use do our departure here on 24, I believe, is our active here. All right, do our flaps to our takeoff position. Landing lights on for our departure. Okay, so we just do our quick checks here. We're going to do our pitot heat is on, anti-collision beacons are all on, nav's good. All right, time for us to take off. All right, throttle up. And let me actually just quickly put this over onto route mode so you can see where we're going. There we go. We have our waypoints 11.6 nautical miles to our next destination. Matches with what the radio nav says. Little bit of a kick to the left. Airspeed is alive. 60 knots. Rotate. Gear up. Flaps up. You're aiming for about 90 knots in the climb for this aircraft. We'll do a left circuit here as we turn over. Right, now we've got our course and headings and indicators there. So we can tell that we are now flying towards the VOR. We're a little bit left of track at the moment. Sorry, a little bit right of track, so we've got to get back on the left. Now, performance is very, very smooth of this aircraft. As I said, it is very much designed as a touring aircraft. So, recreational touring aircraft, not so much of a trainer. This is more sort of just a GA general sort of runabout kind of aircraft, but with decent sort of, as I said, it's got capacity for 4 people. So, pilot, and then you've got 3 other seats there, all modeled beautifully and done. Not as much, although some have been used as trainers, definitely not designed as a training airframe, this one, but still handles many of the Aero and many of the Piper family have very simple, very easy, very docile aircraft to control and fly. Now, needle is showing us on course. We're going to do our turn on to heading now. Continue our climb. We're shooting for... I'm going to shoot for about 5,000–6,000 feet today. Now, one of the things about this aircraft, of course, is that because it is an older aircraft, it doesn't have many of those mod cons that we talked about before. But along with that, it's not just about the mod cons, as it doesn't have glass cockpit. Even, for example, although it doesn't have an autopilot, it's a very basic autopilot. Now, we're going to turn off our landing lights to clear the altitude restriction there, turn off our fuel pump. There we go, that is good. Now, the autopilot is a very, very basic early autopilot in many sort of light aircraft, GA aircraft. And as a result, it doesn't actually have a way to control altitude. So we'll show that once we get up to altitude. So let's quickly climb up to our cruise altitude, and I'll be able to show that one off to you all. All right, so as we stabilize here just about on our cruise altitude of 6,000 feet, so what I want to show you here, as I said, we've got the autopilot down here, which is a basic autopilot. We're going to set it onto Omni because we are running on radio nav today. So this is your main sort of mode selector, as it were, for the autopilot mode. So you've got heading mode, nav and Omni, which essentially are the same thing, and then localizer for shooting an ILS approach. The issue you have, though, is that there's no altitude. It does heading left and right, but it doesn't do an altitude hold. But what Just Flight have done is they've put a hidden altitude hold in here for us virtual aviators if we want to make use of it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to activate, turn our autopilot on, which is going to get us onto our nav frequency. It's going to a little bit pitched, a little bit hard there. It's going to come back a little hard on that one. And then we're going to add the altitude hold there. So the altitude hold is just a tooltip in the Piper, the Piper sort of label there. Click on that and that will give you altitude hold on and off. Now, again, this is probably a slight issue that what happened there with the autopilot is that that is a little brutal. I've noticed that sometimes it's not consistent, so I don't know whether it's an issue with Just Flight's modeling of autopilot or a core sim limitation, but I've noticed that sometimes the autopilot can be a little brutal when it first engages, especially when you're using nav mode. If you're using, however, sort of heading mode, it's a lot gentler with when it does the connection. All right, now that we're at altitude, we're in our cruise. What we're going to do is we're going to start bringing back our manifold pressures here. That's all right. Bring the prop manifold pressure back. Bring our prop RPMs back to 2,300 RPM. Manifold pressure back to about, there we go, 18 inches of manifold pressure. Now, one of the things that is noticeable with this as well is that it does actually sort of follow the the joys of actually running now. Oh, this is actually good. We've actually hit the first zone of confusion, as it were, over the top of our. That's why I actually did a sudden change there. Was that it hit the zone of confusion over the top of the VOR. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change over my VOR feed from nav 1 over to nav 2. But just notice that nav 2 hasn't picked up yet. So we're going to change. We're going to change that to an outbound heading of 85 degrees on nav 1. So let's change that to 85. A3 to be near enough, and that will go in. So we'll use that. So we'll do an outbound radial from this first VOR until our next radio nav site, which is we've got dialed in here, which is 117.5, until that picks up over there. Now I think, I didn't actually turn it on, so that will be useful. So now the VOR nav 2 is on. There we go. Always remember to turn your nav radios on if you're going to rely on 2 nav radios. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to change. That's all right. So we now are within range of that one. So we're now going to change this one to 117.5. So we're now going to the VOR. So you saw the change from to 2 as we changed frequencies. We're dialed in at 83 degrees, heading towards the next VOR. So VOR navigation, so radio nav is fully functional. This are both across nav 1 and nav 2 radios. ADF is also functioning as well. We're not going to use that today. And then we've got our feedback here showing our ground speed and our range to go to the next waypoint, which matches our GPS information there. All right. So controls all working there. Autopilot is what it is. And when I was doing that, I didn't pay enough attention to the altitude hold there, and I actually almost stalled the aircraft. That's always terrifying. So the stall horn works. I'm getting a bit more tested in this aircraft today than I'd originally planned to. Definitely throttled down a bit too far. There we go. Let's wind us back down to 20 inches of manifold pressure. It was better suited there. And 2400 RPM, 20 inches of manifold pressure. Good for our cruise there. That's better. Right, so after that little bit mini crisis there, let's take this opportunity to now have a look at the other cockpit setups that we talked about before. So as I said, you can change your GPS setup in flight if you so desire. So we're going to change from our GPS 100 over to our 430 unit. So this is the power for the 430 unit is a roll to turn on, and it shows you the legs of the flight plan that you got pre-planned, which I've got traveling through here at the moment, so that's all fine. This also allows you to switch. If you want to switch to GPS, you can sort of use that as your CDI source. So for me, so once you turn that on, that gives you the option of a GPS source. The GPS 100 unit, I do not believe can be used as a nav source. You do have the option, as I said, change it here, to there, okay, or that one there. So we're going to switch back to GPS now for that one. All right, and then we're going to have, next thing, we'll switch over to the GPS 530 unit. So as I said, the 530 unit I talked about before. So if we turn that one on, you can see it lights up, but nothing happens on the screen. And if you try and push any of the buttons or anything else, like nothing really functions. So unfortunately, that seems to be a bit of a bust, that one, unfortunately. Alright, so we've got 117.5, 83 degrees, nav hold mode, omni hold, there we go, that's good. So it'll go back and pick up on our nav radio course now. Okay, I'll take a closer eye on the speeds as well for this one. All right, so that's pretty much all the interior sort of covered off here with the interior options. This is probably a good point to actually switch over my tank. So you can see actually here that we've developed a sort of slight fuel imbalance, nothing huge, but it'd be a good time to actually rotate our fuel tanks over to the right tank to feed from there. So there you go. All right, so as I said, we've gone through the interior options here, so nothing really earth-shattering. Some great options, great information for everybody, especially if you're into the more traditional nav. It is a bug with that 530 that is very much that is very annoying. I think it's a real shame that that's so buggy. As I said, the 530 works perfectly fine. Everything about the 530 works as advertised, as you would expect. It's just it only works if you have the aircraft start on the runway or in already flying. If you start cold and dark on the ramp, you cannot power it up. So hopefully it's a glitch that Just Flight will be able to fix very, very shortly. But yeah, just something to be aware of if you do purchase this one. All right, so what we're going to do is going to power down our little EFB and put that back in our pocket. All right, so let's take this opportunity to jump outside and have a look at the rest of the aircraft. So here we are on the outside. We can see this aircraft in its natural environment, so it's high above the UK countryside. And again, as I said like before, it's a beautifully highly detailed model. The lighting system really, really nicely working there with the rotating beacon you can see on the tail there. Beautifully detailed, beautiful high resolution textures used throughout this one. You've got a variety of color schemes available to you for a variety of different operators all around the world. A great amount of detail has been paid to the attention has been paid to the liveries and just making them look a little bit weathered, a little bit worn, but still believable and usable as well, and a lot of really fine detail going through that as well. So, I mean, I can't really fault it. I mean, it looks like an Arrow. It sounds like an Arrow. The sound set has been improved as well. That's probably another thing to note as well. It's the cones aren't as defined as I think that they were in the legacy sims, but they're definitely better than it was when it first released. You can sort of hear that as it quietens down as we go around the front of the prop there. But overall, I mean, it looks like an Arrow. To me, it flies like an Arrow, and everything sort of sits about right. I think most of that would be put down to me underpowering the aircraft earlier with that stall. That was just because I've set it at 1500 RPM, 15 inches of manifold pressure when it should have been 20 inches of manifold pressure. So we just won't talk about that. Anyway, but yeah, so great model there. Probably the only thing that's of note that is a little disappointing is I just want to quickly show you this. So Just Flight have made an interesting decision. So when this aircraft first released, so they've chosen to use their own sort of pilot model for the for your avatar when you're looking from the outside in, or was for the pilot. Which I sort of think is a bit disappointing because I'm pretty sure it's the same avatar that's been flying this Just Flight Arrow from this Arrow from Just Flight for many years across many different sims. Whereas when you're inside, you can turn your co-pilot on and off from the electronic flight bag, and it makes use of the Asobo model. What it's interesting though is that the model that it calls on the inside here isn't actually who you've got defined as your co-pilot. It calls your pilot model, so which is a little bit weird, a little bit interesting. The other random thing that it does as well is that it doesn't put that model available to you in the outside view. So when this aircraft first released, it did, when you called the co-pilot model off your EFB, it would appear both internally and externally, but it would appear as the opposite one. So the internal one appears as the pilot, what you've got defined as your pilot, and the external one appears as what you define as your co-pilot model. What they've done since the update is they've appeared to have removed the option to actually have the pilot, so the co-pilot displayed on the outside. So yeah, little quirk, little interesting. I guess the way of dealing with something not working is just don't deal with it. I don't know, maybe. There you go. So anyway, so yeah, otherwise that's pretty much about it. All right, well, what we'll do now is that we will leave here and we will head out and we'll head towards our final destination, but we'll jump back inside and we'll have a look how the aircraft looks at night. All right, so as we turn off the lights, as it were, we can just have a look at some of the lighting here in this aircraft. So panel lighting is just a simple rocker switch, sort of rotator, sort of roller switch there on the center console. Very basic backlighting, but it works. It does the job exactly like it does in the real aircraft. There's also a overhead dimmer switch as well to actually light up the entire cabin in a nice sort of eye dusk-friendly light as well of various different degrees, which is on a dimmer switch. So both night lighting very, very effective in this aircraft, and I think works very, very well. Does what it says on the tin. So yeah, highly recommend this one. And as I said, I think it looks really good, and it actually really goes to show that the developer here, you can say, I said, there's not that as we saw with Lionheart Creations, who sort of using the old sort of 2D style gauges sort of supplemented the new sim, the developers at Just Flight have sort of redone all the gauges and all the avionics to make sure that they take full use of the new systems in place by Asobo for the new sim, meaning you don't have that sort of always on backlighting effect, and the lighting only comes on when you actually call for it. All right, let's jump back to daylight and let's head back into our landing to actually come in for our final landing and give our final thoughts for this aircraft today. All right, so here we are as we fly crosswind across Stapleford Aerodrome here, coming in for a landing on 221, I think. 28. Do the hard surface runway here on 28. Okay. Bleed off the speed. We'll use the grass parallel there, I think is what we'll do. Okay. Gear travelling, landing lights on, mixture full rich, prop forward. Trim is a little odd with this aircraft. It just seems to be a little overbearing sometimes. Like you'll trim, and then it'll suddenly jump, but could be my error, but it's just something that I do notice is you trim a long way and then it won't seem to do much and then it'll jump. I did notice that a couple of times actually. Okay. Okay, gear 3 greens. Probably started that final turn a little early. Okay, so we'll go for the grass strip to the right of the hard surface runway. A little bit below slope. Power on. The Pappies will be giving me the information for the hard surface, not the grass runway. This aircraft is perfectly capable, of course, of landing on both the hard and the grass surfaces. It's very comfortable operating on both. Gently just hearing that stall horn just as the wheels touch the ground. Exactly what we should do. All right, let's clean this aircraft up. Flaps coming up. We will turn and we'll taxi back on the hard surface runway. the combination hard and grass surface. Then we'll park up and have our final thoughts of the aircraft. All right, there we go. Okay, so now we're there. We can secure our aircraft. All right, so let's go. Parking brake is on. Mixture fuel cutoff. Fuel tank set to off. All right, magneto set to off. Strobes, navs are off. Avionics buses are off. Oop. Alternator batteries off. There we go. All done. And let's grab our a pad and set a couple of animations so we can round out this review today. All right, let's put our chocks tie downs in place. There we go, all done. Okay. So final thoughts about this aircraft. The Just Flight have done, so a lot of the issues, so I had quite a few issues with this aircraft when they first released it. I had issues with the sound system, I had issues with the buttons not functioning, I had issues with the GPSs not working at all. And I've got to admit that almost all of those have been corrected with the release of their first patch. So the only one that's really outstanding now is the GNS 530 is only working if you start the aircraft on the runway or in the air. Otherwise, and the issue of the nav, so the frequency, so your heading bugs, but I think that's a more of a core sim bug rather than an add-on developer's bug, because I see it across default aircraft as well as third-party aircraft. So overall, Just Flight have done an incredible job to start with, releasing this aircraft in incredibly good quality. Model is absolutely beautiful, highly detailed. It feels like flying the Arrow. It feels better in this sim than it does in any other sim, I've got to admit that. Now, I don't have any sick time in an actual Arrow, but it feels like what it should feel like based on my experiences with other aircraft IRL. So it does still have that couple of bugs, though. It does still have that issue of basically the only real big bug outstanding now is the GNS 530. That's it. That's the only one that's outstanding. I would hope that Just Flight will be releasing a patch for that very soon, but if you're like me and you don't use the 530, then it's not a huge issue. Then if you're using the 430 or if you're using the 100, then that's not an issue at all. And for that, this aircraft makes a wonderful addition to a fleet for someone who's wanting to do a cross-country tour, which enjoying seeing the scenery and just flying and the challenge and the thrill of flying on something that simply isn't just pressing buttons in a computer. So overall, I think that this is a really well done add-on. I think it's incredibly well done, incredibly well detailed, despite a couple of minor bugs. The biggest problem I have with it is the price point. I think $45 US for any aircraft is too much, and this is no exception. And I will come across, I feel that, as I said, it's a great add-on. Incredible work's been done by the team, and I just think that, and it's not just, I'm not singling out Just Flight here. I think virtually all add-on developers are producing content that is overpriced, whether it be scenery or aircraft. So this is not a dig directly at Just Flight. This is just an overarching fact that I'm probably going to highlight across pretty much every single review that I ever do. So there you go. But otherwise, it does. If you're looking at expanding your GA fleet or wanting to challenge yourself with something that doesn't have a glass cockpit, this could be an aircraft to grab for you. I think it would be pretty awesome. As I said, it feels right, looks right, and I think it's close as you're going to get without a real thing. All right, so that rounds out our review here of the Piper PA28R Arrow 3, or PA28R-201 Arrow 3, apologies, from developer Just Flight for Microsoft Flight Simulator. So I do want to say a final thank you to the team at Just Flight for providing me with the review copy of this aircraft. And don't forget, you can pick this one up from Just Flight directly or your favorite flight sim retailer, available now. All right, folks, thanks very much for watching. Don't forget, as always, to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed these videos and want to see more. And, of course, as always, you can catch up with me and all the things I'm up to between videos by finding me on Facebook and on Twitter and on Twitch. Just search NovaWing24. All right, folks, thanks very much for watching. Take care, safe skies to all, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.